Hi guys. Today I want to talk about education and the engineer's dilemma is what I call this. In fact, a few months back I had written about this and then published this article. I thought it might be useful to kind of talk about it a little. You see, ever since the beginning of time, all sorts of esoteric and existential questions have been left for the philosophers and saints to ponder upon. I was largely removed from the faculty of science and maths, and if anything, it was actually pitted against science and maths. So, what is the right thing to do when one is faced with a certain situation? Has always been more of an academic pursuit than being rooted in the rigors of daily life. How one behaved when one is forced to choose between one action and the other largely came down to gut feel. And as we know, what you feel is going to be very different from what XYZ is going to feel. Uh, However, never has a need to find answers to some very specific questions and moral dilemma been more acute than now. I think no other generation in the history of mankind has had to really find absolute answers with no gray areas. It's either yes or no. Than this particular generation, our generation, and then perhaps the generation, our next generation to come. Uh, uh, and interestingly, it is these answers which are more esoteric in nature are not going to be answered by philosophers and saints in our generation. It will have to be answered by scientists and engineers and guys who are working on codes and writing algorithms uh, for artificial intelligence. And what is very interesting is that we'll get only one chance to get it right, uh, because after that machine learning takes over, and whatever you are feeding in now is going to be the basis of future learnings by the machines and its future action, which will have a direct impact on human beings going forward. Uh, let's explain this in a very by giving a very clear example. Let's look at a situation where a self-driven car, which is sooner or later is going to be the norm of the day. Um, how does a self-driven car in a given situation decide who lives and who dies in the when it is faced with a question just before it is about to have some kind of accident? You have a young child and an elderly gentleman. Uh, you save one, you have to kind of kill the other one. How does a self-driven car decide? Obviously, it is going to rely upon the algorithm that has been fed into it. Now, this algorithm, and here lies the issue, that these algorithms have not been written by philosophers. It's not philosophers who are sitting and writing the codes. It's engineers who are writing these codes. And I'm very interested to know uh, what kind of, how are they deciding upon this? Have they been trained in these disciplines? Questions of morality, questions of justice, questions of ethics. How does a coder decide on this? How is Tesla doing it today, or any other company which is writing this kind of algorithms and are essentially looking at all these self-driven machines? Which brings us to a more important and a more fundamental question: uh, education. While we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and it's kind of very the boundaries with the fifth industrial revolution is very blurred. Maybe we are in some aspects already in the fifth industrial revolution. Our education system is, I think, still rooted in the first industrial revolution. It's outdated. It's just obsolete and irrelevant. None of the school curriculums, talk anything about life and death. There are no syllabus on teaching life skills. How do we approach this moral dilemmas that we face every day in our real life? Every day in our real life, we are not faced with problems of trigonometry, but we are faced with questions of life and death. More so in today's day and age, and if this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that uh, we need to find a moral bearings. I mean, how do you talk to a dying person? You know, he's going to die. Do our schools or anyone teach us how to do that, and why not? Uh, Else, how do the young kids know how to behave in such situations? What is right and what is wrong? We've always been told is very relative, and there is nothing right, nothing wrong. It's all depends upon circumstances. But how does that apply in today's day and age when we're talking about machines, which will have to take a decision on its own? A machine understands zero and one. It's either right or wrong. It has to kill someone to save someone. How are we deciding that? How are we training our kids who will be tomorrow's programmers and coders to take these kind of important life decisions? I don't think we are preparing ourselves at all. I don't think the educators are even concerned about anything like this, and that's a very dangerous situation that we are looking at. Uh, the future depends upon our ability to answer these questions now. And like I said, no other generation has had to face this kind of moral dilemma and the need to find absolute answers as this generation. So my question to you is: do give it a thought, and let's discuss. And I don't know. I mean, there are schools which are today looking at a very different kind of teaching in a very different way as compared to the way that we've been taught. But that's just the method. What about the content? Where are the life lessons? Uh, how are we preparing our next generation to answer questions of moral dilemma? Thank you.